All right, let's get into it. U.S. Open Cup qualification. We now know how these teams are going to qualify. 8 MLS teams, which is what we're going to focus on. This is, after all, an MLS podcast. It's on points per game. It's the first 3 games of the season, and then there's a tiebreaker buffet. I don't know if we'll dig into that one or how deep we'll get into it, but this is interesting. It's different. It's a sign of the times. It's what has to happen when everything gets thrown into disarray. I mean, we didn't even get this tournament last year, so I'm just happy that it's back in whatever form. I'm not really going to be a chooser on this one. What do you guys think about this qualification method? Doyle, is this the right way to do it? Is it a good way to do it? Are you indifferent?
I'm kind of indifferent. I'm just glad it's back. It's not really the U.S. Open Cup. I think Jim Curtin called it the U.S. Closed Cup.
Jim's some creativity down in Philly.
Jim's got dad jokes, clearly.
Oh, man. That's why I loved it so much.
I loved it.
I loved it. Yeah, I hadn't heard it, and I just truly loved it.
Look, it's reality. It's where we are in this country right now. I mean, cases are spiking back up, which is insanity. People, please protect yourselves and protect the ones around you. So, like, this is the best we can do. There's just not an ability to have the full tournament in this country right now. I'm glad we're getting something.
So me and Doyle kind of ran through some schedules, because the other part about this is 3 games. You know, the schedules are already set, and that's going to decide a lot for the teams that can get in. And some of the teams we put together that it looks like it sets up pretty well for. You've got Nashville, who start with Cincinnati, Montreal, and Miami all at home, which is a pretty convenient first 3 games if that's what you're being judged on. LAFC start with 2 home games, and then they head to Houston for their 3rd game. For the New England Revolution, a team I think a lot of us are picking to be a contender at the top of the league. They start at Chicago and then home to DC and Atlanta, 2 teams with new coaches who are kind of going to be figuring themselves out. You've got LAFC. I said that already. You got Minnesota starting with RSL Austin, and then they
start with Seattle. Then they have home games against RSL and Austin. Yeah,
I wrote that backwards, so that was useless. And then Portland, you've got at Vancouver, which is also in Utah, versus Houston, and then at Dallas. Portland obviously missing Blanco early on, missing a striker option in Niashkota, but you still expect them to be competitive. Those are the teams. Just quick look that you think should be favorites to get into some of these spots over the course of those first 3 games.
Who should care the most about this tournament? Because we go through that and we were talking about it. It just feels like something that Nashville naturally should prioritize.
That's my argument. So one is they've got the schedule set up, 3 home games. I mean, in MLS minimum, home games you should be taking points from. And then there are 3 teams that you can say we think will struggle this year, especially a Cincinnati team with just a bunch of new players, game 1, then a Montreal team under a brand new coach that's not even able to travel back home, and then a Miami team again under a brand new coach with a few new pieces. So you'd expect that, but then you look at the way they performed in the playoffs, you look at Gary Smith's history, and it feels like this is a tournament team. This is a team that isn't going to make silly mistakes, isn't going to give up easy goals, and they're going to be in every game for a tournament setup. And with what year 1 was, now you've got less playoff teams. It's going to be a real fight in the East. If they won a cup in June, early June or May, they won a championship year 2. I think that takes away whatever, focus you want to say, oh, well, we don't want to waste players midweek. We want to focus on MLS and making the playoffs. I think winning a championship year 1 or year 2 would be massive for them. And this seems to set up for them really well.
Would you rather, if you were Nashville, and this is kind of a false binary because it's not one or the other, but would you rather, we're going to pretend it's binary, would you rather win a U.S. Open Cup or make the playoffs? It's one or the other.
I think win an Open Cup. Yeah. And I think when you look at it, this year's still going to be a little bit weird and suck and whatever. You start next year with the CCL. As a new club, you get to start in your market with CCL, and you can talk about how these are what the big teams do. It puts you on a different stage. I think it gives you the ability to acquire different types of players, and it puts a trophy in the trophy case when that doesn't happen for every MLS team. We could talk about good teams, right? The Oscar Pereira FC Dallas teams, they won 1 trophy. And it was that Open Cup.
2.
They won 2 trophies.
Give them that shield.
Sorry.
Come on, man. They danced on the front yard.
That's true.
With
yeah,
Morrow
right.
with that thing. Come on, you got to remember that.
But still, like, it's a rare moment for teams, and for them to do it in year 2 would be massive. And so I think that to me is the direction you got to go in if you're that group.
Can I throw something out with that? then it's a binary, so we're like, it's very simplified here. But if they were to, I think it would be okay if they were close to making the playoffs, if they were almost there, if there was some like, hey, we were a good team, but it is only 7 teams this time around. Everybody else took a step forward. We still made progress. But if you win that thing and then you don't make progress in the regular season, I still think that maybe though you would be happy and you would point to your trophy case and you would have CCL and be excited, you'd feel like there was a little bit missing, because part of what last year was for Nashville was that improvement. That's why the narrative was so strong for them. They were finding themselves, and then they found a different gear that said maybe this team can be more than that, and they keep saying we are more than that. We're going to be more than that. So if they don't show that they are more than that, what they were last year, I still think that would be a pretty big
here's the thing,
disappointment
Weeby.
for them.
I agree with you. But we've been asking the whole time, how do they get better? And the answer would be, we won a championship, right? Because we're talking about style. How do they be more expansive? How do they score more goals? How are they more dangerous? If they win a championship and they're the 7th or 8th place team in the East, they've gotten better, right? Even if they're the same team, because they're not going to get blown out. We already saw that. They already have the base to keep them in make them competitive every game. This is the way they answer the question, which is, how does this club take that step? It's they win a trophy. And so, and it's a realistic one for them. And I think it's set up for them pretty well.
Give me Columbus with the quad.
Mm-hmm.
Give me CCL. Give me Open Cup. Give me Shield. Give me MLS
So
Cup.
you're telling me you want Columbus to, they have the hardest draw in CCL, right? They have they don't have Leon. First round, they have Pontoise or something like that.
Then
they've got the hardest draw because they would have to go through 2 Liga MX teams just to get to the final.
Right.
And then you want them to beat Philly in week 1 to set themselves up to continue to play well in the opening 3 weeks. And then you want them to win Supporter Shield as well.
Be legends. Be legends.
It's
Caleb.
one of the best rosters I've ever seen going into a preseason. It's a tall task.
One of the best you've ever seen.
You don't think so?
I hadn't considered it in those terms. I don't think it's one of the best I've ever seen, but it's definitely one of the best in the league this year.
It's an MLS Cup winner who lost 0 pieces and added multiple pieces that could be game changers or just depth.
Mm-hmm.
We'll talk about it. I'm telling you. I think next Monday, I'm looking at my schedule behind me. Yes, next Monday, as we do our full CCL preview, we'll talk about it. By the way,
is Charlie going to be on that show?
FS1 has those rights. He will not. I've checked the
Isn't
schedule.
the most pressure on LAFC for U.S. Open Cup? Bob Bradley has a great history with the U.S. Open Cup. LAFC have been an amazing team through 3 years. They haven't won a cup.
Is it pressure or is it opportunity? I think it's just a really good opportunity because of the depth of their roster and their quality. They can look at that tournament and say, actually, I'm not sure we could probably win this without stretching us as far as other teams, which is not to say that it would be easy, but we might not have to stretch quite as far. We'll see, though. We'll see. It's going to be interesting. Those first 3 weeks to see who qualifies, top 8 teams, again, on points per game.